Here's how to ferment garlic and honey. You will need raw, unpasteurized honey. If the honey is heat processed, the heat kills the good microorganisms needed to stimulate fermentation. Therefore, it's important to use raw honey. Next, you will need some whole garlic cloves. Large or small, either will work. Remove the skins of the garlic. Now, some people have a concern about botulism with fermented garlic and honey, so let's take a look into that for just a moment before we move forward. Botulism is a disease that comes from this bacteria right here. It is found in soil and marine sediments worldwide, most commonly as spores. These spores can be found everywhere, and while the spores are harmless, the danger of botulism occurs once the spores begin to grow out into active bacteria and produce neurotoxins. It's the neurotoxins produced by the bacteria that are the danger, not so much the bacteria itself. It takes an optimum environment for botulinum bacteria to proliferate and release those poisonous neurotoxins. Conditions of this optimum environment are 1, the absence of oxygen, and 2, alkalinity. Here's the good news with fermentation, including garlic and fermented honey. Properly prepared fermented foods are acidic, meaning they have a pH below 4.6. The acidity kills the bad pathogens, including the botulinum bacteria. Therefore, there's no risk of neurotoxins and the fermentation is safe to eat. Raw pure honey is naturally acidic. Some honeys are strongly acidic, others are mildly acidic, and you can use a pH meter to test your honey as I'm doing here, but it's certainly not required. So if honey is naturally acidic, garlic fermented in honey should be safe, right? Well, most likely yes. If there is a risk of botulism, the risk comes from the added food to the honey, and in this case, the garlic. Why? Because garlic is not acidic. Its pH is above 4.6. Garlic grows in soil where there's many bacteria that grow. Some are good, some are not so good. However, when the garlic is placed into the honey draws out the water from within the garlic, and the alkaline garlic juices mingles with this acidic honey, and the alkaline juice is what raises the pH of the honey. If the pH stays high for too long, and hypothetically if there are any botulinum spores present, they can begin to grow out in the oxygen-free, non-acidic environment and release neurotoxins. Personally, I have fermented onions and garlic and honey for years, ignorant of this information, and I never contracted botulism, along with the case being for millions of other people around the world. So I'm not presenting this botulism information to create fear. Rather, I'm presenting it to relieve a fear that one may already have. With this garlic and honey recipe, I'm going to show you a tip that I learned that will keep the honey acidic once the garlic is added so that any possible concern can be just taken off the table. Let's move forward. Add 1 tablespoon of plain or any flavor kombucha or vinegar to the jar. Kombucha and or vinegar are strongly acidic. Therefore, adding a small amount to the honey will drop the pH even further. The additional pH drop counteracts the garlic's alkalinity. I have some visual examples that I'll show you coming up, so stay tuned. Add the garlic cloves to the jar. Pour the honey over the garlic. There are no measurements of the honey in the garlic. However much garlic is in the jar, just pour the honey until it's covered. Take a chopstick and push and dunk the garlic and honey around like so. Don't worry about the kombucha or the vinegar not fully combining at this point. I'm going to add just a tad more honey here. Then put the lid on very tight and turn the jar upside down. This will help get things incorporated. You can do this several times if you wish. For demonstration purposes, I'm taking another pH reading. The honey on its own had the pH of 3.8. The 1 tablespoon of kombucha dropped that pH even further to 3.0. This is a good starting pH to counter the raising of the pH that the honey will experience once the garlic begins to release its juices. For the fermentation period, leave the jar on the counter at room temperature for a minimum of 14 days. Then feel free to begin eating and using in recipes. During the fermentation period, however, you will notice bubbles forming within the first 24 to 48 hours. During the bubbly stage of the fermentation, which will only last about 7 to 10 days, every day turn the jar upside down and back up again to encourage the incorporation of all the liquids in the jar, plus keep the garlic coated with the honey. The honey coating is the garlic's protectant from surface oxygen during the early stages of fermentation. Doing this daily will prevent any surface funk that may try to develop. Here we are at day 21, and you don't have to let your honey and garlic go this long. Feel free to start eating and enjoying at 14 days. But I know many of you just want to keep letting it go, so let's take a look. You'll notice that there are no more bubbles. This is normal and to be expected, since the bubbly phase is only a short period of time. The consistency is thin and more watery due to the full integration of the starting kombucha and/or vinegar and the garlic juices. The color has also darkened. Again, this is all normal, and you can eat and enjoy. Here's a side-by-side example of some garlic fermented in honey without added kombucha or vinegar on the left, while the version with added kombucha is on the right. Both use honey with a pH of 3.8. By day 14, the one without added kombucha had a pH of 4.5. By day 21, 4.6. And by day 30, 4.8. More time allowed for more garlic juices to be released, slowly continually raising the pH. When tested again at 3 months, the pH was holding at 4.8. However, this is a pH still above the acidic safety zone. As for the one with added kombucha, the honey pH at the start was 3.0. By day 14, the pH had risen to 3.5 as a result of the garlic juices releasing. By day 30, the pH was 4.2, and when tested again at 3 months, the pH was holding at 4.2, which is in the acidic safety zone. Can you add the kombucha or the vinegar afterwards to drop the pH? Well, not if the intention is to safeguard from potential botulism poisoning. Why? Because the addition of the kombucha or vinegar to the honey after the fact may kill the bacteria by dropping the pH, but it wouldn't remove the neurotoxins already present. So if you opt for the kombucha or vinegar tip, add it at the beginning of the fermentation and not the end. Like I said earlier, I'm not presenting this information to create fear, but address a fear that some of you may already have. If you don't have concerns about botulism, great. Prepare the garlic and honey the way you are comfortable. Also, I'm not going to go into how to use the garlic fermented in honey, since there are already so many videos out there on the health benefits, the remedies, and the culinary recipes. Simply do a YouTube search if you want to learn about more ways to use it. If you want to test the pH of your honey, this type of pH meter will not work. Although you may have seen me use it in my vegetable fermentation videos where I test the pH of a brine, it is for liquids only, and brine is a liquid. This pH meter does not work with solid foods, syrups, or anything viscous like honey. If you do use it for honey, it will ruin its little probe up in there, and you'll be stuck having to buy another one. Paper pH test strips also don't work with honey. So for solid or viscous foods like honey, use a digital pH meter like this one. Its probe is exposed, so it can be properly cleaned after use, and it's not as hypersensitive to being touched like the other meter is. And I think this is because it's designed to be used with such foods. It also works with liquids, including the brine of a vegetable fermentation, so it really could be an altogether replacement of the other meter if you wanted to branch out into what you're pH testing. An added bonus is that there is the option of getting a second replacement probe at the time of purchase. So if anything did happen to it, you wouldn't have to buy the whole meter again, since you'd already have a backup replacement probe. If this is something that interests you, a link is provided in the description. Plus, watch the video I have on how to calibrate it before its first use. After all, calibration ensures accuracy. What's the point of using a pH meter if it's not going to be accurate? Find all of my favorite fermenting gear on my website, cleanfoodliving.net. And if you would like to support me and my channel, I would just love it if you considered buying me a cup of tea. Your $5 donation would be so appreciated and help me continue making more free content like this to help you and others become a more confident and competent fermenter. That Buy Me a Cup of Tea link is found in the video description. Watch my vegetable fermentation recipe videos such as sauerkraut, fermented pickles, and that's not vinegar pickles, carrots, and much more by clicking on this playlist right here. And did you know that you can wild ferment your own apple cider vinegar? Absolutely you can. Click right here to learn how. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.